The world of judo is full of legendary names, great victories, and defeats that have forever entered the history of sport. In this video, we will share the amazing stories of 20 of the greatest judokas from around the world, the strongest, most talented, and greatest masters of judo, whose achievements made them heroes of their time. Their sporting careers span from the first half of the 20th century to the beginning of the current decade, showing how technique, strength of spirit, and perseverance create true judo legends. The Second World War was a turning point for judo. The death of judo founder Jigoro Kano before the war, the wartime demands and surrender of Japan, the post-war occupation, and the banning of martial arts, all of this contributed to a period of uncertainty in Japan in general and in judo in particular. The revival of this martial art after the war was primarily due to the hero of today's video, the legendary judoka Kyuzo Mifune, who is considered one of the greatest representatives of the art of judo after its founder Jigoro Kano, and many even call him the greatest judo technician. Kyuzo Mifune was the youngest of 7 children. Perhaps it was fate, as he was born just 1 year after the founding of the Kodokan Judo Institute by Jigoro Kano. As a child, Mifune was extremely stubborn, always getting into some kind of trouble or dragging others into similar situations. His father, Kyuzo Mifune, was a strict disciplinarian, and by the time Mifune was 13 years old, his father grew tired of the boy and sent him to an incomplete high school in Sendai in northern Japan. There Mifune discovered judo, which later became a very serious interest. Yes, so that after a year of training when he was 14 years old and participating in a school tournament, he was able to defeat 9 opponents in a row. In 1903, Mifune enrolled in Jigoro Kano's Kodokan Judo Institute. After 15 months, he achieved his first dan in judo, and after a surprisingly short period of 4 months, he achieved his second dan. These rapid achievements and the fact that he never once lost at the annual Kodokan Red and White tournament are what earned Mifune his towering reputation. Over the next 20 years, Mifune's reputation and status continued to grow, and by 1912 he had achieved 6th dan, in 1923 7th dan, and won the first All-Japan Championship, by which time he was already being called the God of Judo. In support of this nickname, we can recall his famous bout with a sumo wrestler. When Kyuzo Mifune was 40 years old, he was challenged by a sumo wrestler who was 183 centimeters tall and weighed 110 kilograms. Mifune, who was not very big physically, being 159 centimeters tall and weighing 56 kilograms, managed to win the fight by successfully applying his signature sumi otoshi throw. Mifune taught at Kodokan, where he became chief instructor, and also taught at numerous universities, police departments, and military academies. In 1931, Jigoro Kano promoted Mifune to 8th dan, and in 1937 he was awarded 9th dan. After Kano's death in 1938, however, Mifune became the most influential mentor in Kodokan Judo. On May 25, 1945, Kyuzo Mifune was elevated to 10th dan, becoming the 4th of 18 judoka to be so honored. Mifune possessed 2 strong leadership qualities. The first was a great love for judo and an abiding appreciation for the opportunity to train. Since Mifune was short and skinny, these physical attributes made him fast and difficult to throw, and constant injuries forced him to examine aspects of his training that he might otherwise have missed. His second quality, however, was his kind attitude toward his students and his genuine interest in their welfare and success. Along with other great teachers of his time, he taught that the real goal of judo was not only to win, but to embody the truth contained in judo. He often reminded his students that judo was about perfecting character. His teachings emphasized the importance of throwing your opponent off balance, constantly striving to improve your technique, strategizing to allow your partner to move first, and never giving up. Mifune actively practiced judo throughout his life, and some judo legends tell us that in his 60 years of practice, Kyuzo Mifune never lost a match, nor was he ever dropped. Mifune was also an accurate and inspiring writer, and his words of wisdom, encouragement, and direction are a motivation for all martial artists. Never stop training. If my opponents train 1 hour, I train 2. If they train 2 hours, I will train 3. The Japanese martial art of judo had a very difficult fate in the Soviet Union. The path of the first Soviet judoka, Vasili Oshchepkov, was also thorny. Oshchepkov lived a bright but short life. He brought judo to the Soviet sport, but abandoned it in favor of sambo. He worked for the Soviet security services, but was shot as a Japanese spy. There were a great many rumors and speculations. So who really was this mysterious first judoka of the Soviet Union, who can rightfully be called the founder of the domestic martial art of sambo? Vasili Oshchepkov was born in Sakhalin in 1893 in a civilian family of a prisoner, Maria Oshchepkova, and a carpenter, Sergey Plisak. About his mother is known only that for the escape from the Perm prison, she received 60 lashes and was sentenced to 18 years of hard labor, which she served on Sakhalin, and died when Vasily was only 8 years old. Morzin Sloboda, where Oshchepkov spent his childhood, were like its inhabitants. It was considered the norm to beat those who could not stand up for themselves. The same orders reigned among the children. That is why Vasily, being still a child, participated more than once in brutal yard fights. August 23, 1905, under the humiliating for Russia Portsmouth Peace Treaty, Japan established control over part of Sakhalin, south of the 50th parallel. In 1907, Vasili Oshchepkov, as an orphan, was sent to the Japanese city of Kyoto, or rather to the Russian colony, which was under the patronage of the Orthodox mission. There, in a church seminary, he began his studies with the prospect of becoming a clergyman. However, studying at the seminary did not prevent all willing seminarians from practicing judo with its creator, Master Jigoro Kano. When practicing with Jigoro, Vasily, having the hardening of a yard fighter, immediately took a liking to his mentor. On October 29, 1911, having put in a lot of effort, Oshchepkov entered the Kodokan Institute, the headquarters of the world judo community. In those years, training in Kodokan was harsh and sometimes even cruel. Older students, the more skillful judoka, would mercilessly throw newcomers onto the hard tatami, choking and breaking their arms. The falls often resulted in injuries and fractures. None of those recruits who enrolled with Oshchepkov subsequently did not manage to stay in school until the end. They all failed to withstand the harsh tests. But Vasily did, and in the end, so mastered judo that he counted on receiving a master's title, and such an opportunity was given to him. He received the first dan after half a year of training in Kodokan in 1913. He was recognized as a master of judo, which in itself was very surprising, as master's degrees were not handed out left and right, especially to foreigners. Moreover, Oshchepkov earned praise from Jigoro Kano himself, and that was worth a lot. After all, the Japanese master was always stingy on praise. After a few more years of hard work in the Kodokan school, and Oshchepkov again passed the exam to the strict teachers, who again were unanimous in their decision. On October 4, 1917, Vasili Oshchepkov was awarded an even higher master's degree, the second dan. Oshchepkov returned to his homeland as an educated man who was fluent in Japanese and English. Therefore, in Soviet Russia, Vasily became a secret agent of the Siberian military district and collected intelligence in Japan and China. And after completing his service and returning to Novosibirsk, Vasili Oshchepkov once at one of the meetings demonstrated his mastery of judo. He, with his bare hands, easily coped with attackers who were armed with knives and sticks. As a result, in 1929 were organized training courses in hand-to-hand combat for the command staff of the Moscow garrison, which was headed by Oshchepkova. In fact, the first judo school in the Soviet Union was created. In a short period of time, Oshchepkov, who had completely lost contact with his foreign colleagues due to the closed nature of the Soviet Union, managed not only to make judo truly popular among Soviet sports, but also to change it and adapt it to the Soviet reality, creating a completely new martial art. Oshchepkov then had an understanding that in its pure form, judo will not be able to solve all the issues of self-defense. Gradually, the strict, often ritualistic style of martial arts acquired the features of free fight, which took into account the best techniques from other national schools of wrestling. This was the birth of a new martial art, Sambo. By the end of the 30s, Oshchepkov's Sambo differed significantly from the classical Kodokan Judo, surpassing it in many respects. It included various sporting and applied techniques borrowed from other martial arts, and in fact was a unique system of self-defense, thanks to which Sambo wrestlers, after 4 to 6 months of training, could successfully fight with the holders of the 4th Dan of Judo, which required many years to obtain. The mass repressions that began in 1937 did not bypass the country's famous coach Vasili Oshchepkov. He was accused of espionage in favor of Japan and arrested. According to some claims, Oshchepkov was shot almost immediately after his arrest. According to another version, the first Soviet judoka and founder of Sambo died on the 10th day of imprisonment from a heart attack. Almost every mixed martial arts fan has probably heard of the Kimura pain hold. But few people know about the legendary judoka Masahiko Kimura, after whom the hold was named. A natural athlete, Kimura achieved a meteoric rise in judo due to his amazing physical abilities and passionate desire to be the best. But he is most remembered for his unrivaled work ethic and rigorous training. Kimura was born on September 10, 1917, in Kumamoto, Japan, and began practicing judo at the age of 9. The boy was not just a natural for judo. He was a prodigy as he achieved the rank of 4 Dan black belt by the age of 15. In 1935, at the age of 18, Masahiko Kimura took part in the famous Kodokan tournament, a survival tournament, where wrestlers divided into 2 teams, red and white belts, fought each other, and tried to win as many bouts as possible in a row. Kimura won 8 consecutive bouts, losing only the 9th, and that was more than enough to earn him the 5th Dan, making Kimura the youngest judoka to achieve that rank at such a young age. But despite this success, the year 1935 was also a bad year for Kimura, as he suffered his first 4 defeats. Kimura was so angry at his failures that he decided to quit judo, but as a result, somehow managed to refocus his thoughts and efforts and become arguably the greatest judoka in history. And those 4 defeats, suffered at the age of 18, would be his only defeats in competitive judo. After this, Kimura redoubled his efforts in training and vowed that he would avenge the defeats. He continued to hone his skills as hard as he could and became incredibly proficient in his favorite throw, the osodogari. The fall after which was so severe and injury-prone that his sparring partners often asked Kimura to limit his use of the technique to protect himself from injury. In the fall of 1937, Masahiko Kimura took part in the All-Japan Judo Championships, quite easily defeating the first 2 opponents, both with his crowning throw osodogari. In the final, he met the best judoka of those years, Masayuki Nakajima, and who, in addition to all this, was also 13 centimeters taller and almost 20 kilograms heavier than Kimura. Throughout the fight, Kimura could do nothing with his opponent. Several times they flew off the tatami. By the end of the fight, the competitors were so tired that both of them almost fainted, but neither of them could earn a single point. And then an additional round was announced. Nakajima's and Kimura's kimonos were wet with sweat, and they could barely stand on their feet. But when they were given time to rest, Kimura noticed that Nakajima was actively massaging his legs, and he realized where his opponent's weak spot was. As soon as the bout resumed, Kimura worked his way to Nakajima's legs, threw him down, and performed a hold. The bout, which lasted 40 minutes, was over. Masahiko Kimura became the champion of Japan. But on this achievement, he was not going to stop. Then Masahiko thought that he won by accident and only because he was younger and tougher than his opponent. The thought began to creep into his mind that maybe he wouldn't be able to repeat this victory. And since then, the desire to win every time turned into an obsession. Kimura was no longer willing to give up the title of best judo fighter to anyone. But how to do it, thought Masahiko, because there are so many talented judoka who train as much as him. They are full of desire, determination, and strength to take away his title. Then he decided to develop his own unique training system, thanks to which he wanted to become invincible. This system included daily training for 9 hours, consisting of thousands of push-ups and practicing some elements of throws to automaticity, where at night in the forest, Kimura's opponents were often ordinary trees. All these efforts bore fruit, and Masahiko Kimura won 2 more All-Japan Judo Championships, becoming a 3-time champion of Japan. In 1943, Kimura joined the Japanese army, where he taught judo. After the war, he returned to competition in 1947 and won the West Japan Judo Championship. And then in 1949, at the age of 32, he won the All-Japan Judo Championship for the 4th time. This ended Kimura's athletic career as an amateur judoka and began his career as a professional judoka. In 1951, Kimura traveled to Brazil with another judoka, Yukio Kato, who accepted a challenge from the legendary Brazilian jiu-jitsu master Helio Gracie. The rules of the bout were set by Gracie. The bout could only end by submission or loss of consciousness. Ippon did not count. Kato and Helio were about the same size. During the bout, Kato threw Gracie on the tatami for a while, but the mats were pretty soft, so the throws didn't do much damage to Helio. Then the Japanese judokan decided to apply a chokehold, but that was his big mistake. Helio skillfully escaped and caught Kato by himself, took him for a choke, as a result of which Kato lost consciousness. Helio then challenged Kimura, who accepted. Unlike Kato, Kimura was much bigger than Helio, but that didn't stop Brazilian fans from declaring that their master would finish the Japanese. Masahiko Kimura, already from the first minutes of the fight, showed his superiority in the stand-up fight, repeatedly throwing the Brazilian. After that, he started to choke the Brazilian on the ground. After many years, in 1993, Helio once recalled in an interview that he passed out then, but nobody noticed it. If Kimura had continued to choke me, I would have definitely died, but since I didn't give up. Kimura released the chokehold and engaged in the next technique. The release of the choke and the pain from the next technique brought me back to life, and I continued fighting. The painful hold that Gracie woke up from was called a reverse shoulder knot. The entire 20,000-seat stadium fell silent, but Helio wasn't going to give up, and then there was a snap in the silence. It was his arm breaking. But even after that, Gracie didn't give up, and Kimura, continuing to twist his arm, broke another bone in Helio's hand. That was the end of the bout. Gracie's corner threw away the white towel, admitting defeat. After this bout, in honor of Masahiko, the painful reverse shoulder knot technique by which he won was called Kimura. In the early 60s, Masahiko Kimura stopped competing and focused on coaching, spending the rest of his life teaching the art of judo. Kimura coached several world-class judoka, including Japanese champions and Olympic medalists. For example, Kimura's students included Canadian Douglas Rogers, who won a silver medal at the Tokyo Olympics, and Japanese Masaki Mishimura, who won bronze at the Munich Olympics. On April 18, 1993, after a long battle with lung cancer, Kimura died at the age of 75. But with a technique named in his honor, the memory of Masahiko Kimura will live on for as long as judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and mixed martial arts exist. The legendary judoka Anton Geesink from the Netherlands was an outstanding figure in the world of judo. In addition to having tremendous strength, being 198 centimeters tall and weighing 120 kilograms, Geesink was also a superbly trained and very technical wrestler. Anton Geesink became the first non-Japanese to win a world title. He is also one of only 2 non-Japanese to achieve the 10th Dan in judo. However, Anton Geesink is most remembered for his victory that shocked the world when he won the gold medal at the 1964 Tokyo Olympics. Geesink was born in 1934 in the Dutch city of Utrecht. His family was poor, and he went to work as a laborer on a construction site as early as the age of 12. Geesink started judo at the age of 14, and quickly began to progress. Participating in his first European Championships in 1951, at the age of 17, he won a silver medal. The following year, he became European champion for the first time. By the time he retired in 1967, he had won a total of 21 European titles, a record that is unlikely to be broken. At the World Championships, Geesink made his breakthrough in Paris in 1961 when he defeated the reigning Japanese champion Koji Son. With this victory, he interrupted the dominance of the Japanese in judo, who by then had won all the world titles. But in 1964, Geesink dealt the Japanese an even bigger blow. That year, judo was included in the Olympic Games for the first time, and given that the Olympic Games were held in Japan, the birthplace of judo, it inevitably meant a lot of interest in the sport, and many local fans naturally expected their athletes to win gold medals in all weight categories, including the absolute category in which Geesink competed. In this category, Japan was represented by Akio Kaminaga, who had won silver at the 1958 World Championships and was the favorite to win the games. Kaminaga and Geesink met in the second bout of the tournament, which was unexpectedly won by Geesink by decision. However, Kaminaga still reached the semifinals, where he defeated German Klaus Glahn in a tough fight. Anton Geesink's semifinal was a complete contrast to Kaminaga and Glahn's bout. Geesink fought against Australian Theodore Boronovskis and defeated him in just 12 seconds. As a result, the Dutchman met the Japanese once again, but in the final. For 9 minutes of the bout, there was no advantage on either side. The atmosphere was tense and waiting, but then Kaminaga started to attack, but his Dutch opponent counterattacked and threw the Japanese to the ground. A couple seconds later, the referee counted the ippon and Geesink won. It was the first gold medal of these Olympic Games, but to the surprise of many, it was won not by a Japanese but by a European, Anton Geesink from the Netherlands. The Japanese were upset, but Geesink's victory significantly changed the future of judo. The 1964 Olympic Games were the first to be broadcast live, and the image of the giant Geesink towering over his opponent Akio Kaminaga went around the world. This moment was not only good for the Dutch sport, but for judo as a whole. After all, without Anton Geesink's victory, judo may not have become such a popular international sport. After winning the 1965 World Championships and winning the last European title in 1967, at the age of 33, Geesink gave up judo competition and retired. After retirement, Geesink competed in pro wrestling for a time, starred in a movie playing the role of Samson, and became a well-known administrator in his sport. The use of blue and white judo kimonos to make it easier for spectators to distinguish athletes was his idea. In 1987, Anton Geesink was accepted into the International Olympic Committee, and 10 years later he became part of a select group of judokas who received the highest rank in judo, the 10th Dan. In total, during his competitive career, Anton Geesink became Olympic champion once, world champion 3 times, European champion 21 times, and Dutch champion many times. He also won the Dutch Greco-Roman Wrestling Championships 3 times. Champions are not born, champions become champions. It is always a long and hard work, overcoming oneself and the capabilities of one's body. And when for some people this process becomes a real test, others follow the sporting path easily and as if playing. This is how Vladimir Nevzorov, the great Soviet judoka, whose technique was admired by better Japanese coaches, came to great victories. Vladimir Nevzorov was born on October 5, 1952, in the city of Maykop, Adygea Autonomous Region, From early childhood, the boy grew up to be a very active child who loved sports. He was engaged in chess, tennis, and soccer, together with friends liked to run. Nevzorov got into wrestling by accident. Once, as a joke, he decided to wrestle with a friend, and in a flash was on the floor. A leader by nature, which was Vladimir. This state of affairs hurt, and at the same time spurred, wanted to become better and stronger. Well, I flipped a coin to go to boxing or to wrestling. It was wrestling. I came, we were all lined up, 200 people in a row. The coach, a young Adagian guy, selected 80 guys and told the rest, "When you grow up, come back then." And we were like, "No way," and we stayed, recalled Vladimir Nevzorov. This is how Nevzorov met his first and the main coach in his life, Yakub Koblev. This young mentor brought up a whole era of judo masters. In Vladimir's sports career, Yakub was not just a teacher, but also a close person, who led the young man to great victories in both judo and sambo. In 1970, Nevzorov won the youth championship of the Soviet Union in sambo. In 1971, he won the only gold medal for the Soviet Union at the Junior European Judo Championship. At the adult level, Vladimir won his first sambo competition at the National Championship in Moscow. It was there that he first defeated Valery Dvoinikov, whose confrontation with him would adorn both Soviet and world judo for many years to come. The initial period of his great sports career, Nevzorov was torn between two types of wrestling, sambo and judo. Both there he showed good results, winning at international tournaments. But following the proverb, "Chase two birds, you will never catch one," Vladimir decided to focus on one thing and chose judo. Perhaps the reason was the fact that, unlike sambo, Japanese martial arts is an Olympic sport, where there is a chance to win a medal at the main start of the quadrennium. In 1973, Nevzorov took part in the World Championship, where he did not achieve any special results. The athlete himself claimed that he was sued. By 1975, Vladimir was already completely different. Having won 2 golds at the European Championships, individual and team, he was confidently approaching the World Championships in Vienna. In Austria, Nevzorov confidently reached the semifinals, where his opponent was Japanese Kurumoto, one of the favorites of the tournament. Vladimir had been preparing for this meeting, studying his opponent's techniques and holds, so he knew his crowning trick, the hold. The Soviet athlete swiftly conducted a painful hold and won. In the final, Nevzorov was waiting for his compatriot, the same Valery Dvoinikov, whom Vladimir had already defeated, but in a different kind of sambo. Valery Dvoinikov was already in good shape for the World Championship, but I knew one of his weaknesses. He did bad twines. Nowadays they put you on twines from childhood, but we started to do them at the age of 19. It was easy for me to do a catch with him because he didn't do the twine. Well, that was the end of it, Nevzorov said. Thus, for the first time in the history of this sport, a representative of the Soviet Union, Vladimir Nevzorov, climbed the first step of the podium at the World Championships. It would seem that the winner of the World Championship should automatically qualify for the Olympics. But in the Soviet national team, where 2 equally strong athletes claimed 1 place in the category up to 70 kilograms, everything was not so unambiguous. Dvoinikov and Nevzorov were preparing hard for the Soviet Union Championship, where the fate of a ticket to the Games was decided. They, being in one team, separated with personal coaches in different halls, gave maximum effort and tuned in to the fight as if it were the last one. The tension was enormous, and at the national championship in the decisive meeting, 2 judokas in a hard fight determined who will go to Canada. Nevzorov won, and Dvoinikov was forced to change category to go to Montreal. There he was not left without an award and lost only in the final to a Japanese, thus winning silver. Who were the favorites in the weight category up to 70 kilograms? Of course, the representatives of the Soviet Union and Japan. And all predictions came true, as in the final these 2 athletes met on the tatami, Vladimir Nevzorov and Koji Kurumoto. When I was told that I had to prepare for 10 to 15 opponents, I answered that I need prepare for 2, Valery Dvoinikov and Kurumoto. Valery was not my opponent at the Olympics, as he moved to a heavier weight category, so the only goal was the Japanese. Do you know how we prepared? We had 12 people who thoroughly studied Kuramoto's technique, and I practiced bouts with them. 4 times a week, 12 men, 3-hour training sessions. Everything was practiced to the point of automatism, recalled Vladimir Nevzorov. And such persistent training helped Vladimir to win. The Soviet triumph was not hindered neither by a cruel, painful hold performed by the Japanese, nor by a controversial moment of refereeing, which was emphasized even by his rival, the coach of the Japanese national team, Isao Okano, telling in one of the interviews that the Soviet judoka was evaluated by the front foot with the assessment Wazari, although it was worthy of the highest assessment, Ippon. After the Games, Nevzorov, now as an Olympic champion, won the 1977 European Championships in individual and team competition, and in 1978, he won silver at the Continental Championships. And perhaps many people were expecting a repeat of his success at the home games. But Vladimir's old injuries were making themselves felt, and it was becoming increasingly difficult to continue to take to the tatami. Having finished his sporting career, Nevzorov did not leave his native judo, and at the moment, he is a member of the Presidium of the Russian Judo Federation. Sergey Novikov is a renowned and exceptional Soviet athlete, the 1976 Olympic judo champion, and a multiple-time winner and medalist of various international and national tournaments in both judo and sambo. Throughout his athletic career, foreign media often wrote about him with admiration, even calling Novikov a Russian miracle. In his judo, one could observe all the elements that make us love this sport: flawless technical precision, lightning-fast and mesmerizing throws, calculated composure. Thanks to this combination, Sergey Novikov was universally acknowledged as the most powerful and technically gifted judoka of his time. Sergey Novikov was born on December 15, 1949 in Moscow. He began training in sambo at the age of 14, after his family moved to Kyiv, following the retirement of his father, a military officer. There, he joined the section under the guidance of honored USSR coach Yaroslav Ivanovich Voloshychuk. Voloshychuk later recalled, "I immediately saw he was a strong guy, solid build, 185 centimeters tall, and that was at just 14. But he seemed shy, perhaps overly reserved. Yet I soon realized this first impression was misleading. What looked like shyness was actually external restraint, beneath which hid determination, exceptional reflexes, and courage." After only 3 months of training, 15-year-old Sergey won the Ukrsoviet Dynamo Youth Championship. His wise coach recognized the potential he had and didn't rush to mold the teenager into a stereotypical athlete. Voloshychuk saw that Sergey, with his long legs and natural sharpness, was more suited to foot techniques. He also understood that in the heavyweight division, success required strength and athleticism. Thus, Novikov engaged in intense weight training to build the necessary power to support his refined technique. In 1971, the Sambo Spartakiad of the Peoples of the Soviet Union was held in Moscow. Competing in the up to 100 kilograms weight class, the young representative of the Ukrainian national team, Sergey Novikov, confidently advanced to the finals. There, he faced international master of sport and seasoned Muscovite Vladimir Tretiakov, an experienced and cunning wrestler. In the opening minutes, Tretiakov repeatedly caught Sergey's leg with subtle sweeps and earned 2 points. But Novikov remained unshaken, moving across the mat calmly and steadily, attempting to unbalance his opponent with methodical handwork. Then, in the final minute, their movements synchronized. Novikov sensed the perfect moment, launched into a back trip, and brought Tretiakov down on his back. A perfect throw. The match was over. Amazingly, the next day, this scenario played out again in the final of the Soviet Championship. This time, however, Novikov executed a front trip instead of a back one, again in the final seconds. Wrestling experts highlighted his unique talent, an impeccable sense of timing, and an Olympic-level cool-headedness that allowed him to patiently wait for the right moment to strike. There are moments in life that etch themselves into memory and forever divide time into before and after. The final match of the 1976 Montreal Olympics was such a moment. Here's how Sergey Novikov recalled it. "The final split my life into everything that came before and everything that followed. All that came before was just a path to victory." The favorite of the games was Japan's 1975 world champion Sumio Endo. Drawn to face each other in the first round, Novikov described it as his toughest Olympic match. Endo failed to land a single throw, while Novikov secured 2 holds and ultimately triumphed. Before reaching the final, he fought 3 more opponents: the enormous Park Jong-kir of North Korea, 210 centimeters tall and over 165 kilograms, strong Yugoslavian Kovacevic, and Englishman Remfry, all of whom he had faced in earlier competitions and knew well. In contrast, his final opponent, West German Günther Nierenmauter, was unfamiliar. That may have worked in Novikov's favor. The final lasted only 44 seconds, ending with a clean throw and victory. The Soviet Union achieved a dominant team victory at those Olympics, winning 125 medals in total, 49 of which were gold. A sixth sense helps Novikov defeat giants much stronger than him, wrote Sovietsky Sport in the late 1970s. Soviet journalists viewed him as a chess master on the tatami, always calculating the optimal sequence of moves. Novikov once said, "When I step onto the tatami, I try to read my opponent's psychological state. I look into his eyes and analyze what he's feeling at that moment. Every little detail matters." Four years after his Olympic triumph, Sergey Novikov retired from competition. Yet even during that final stretch of his career, he delivered numerous memorable performances that still resonate with judo aficionados. Among Novikov's most memorable matches after his Olympic success was a bout at the Spartakiad of the Peoples of the USSR against 3-time European champion Alexei Turin, a 160-kilogram, 2-meter-tall powerhouse. Turin was so strong, he once tore the back of an opponent's kimono. But this was the mountain Novikov had to conquer. Turin, relying on his size, attacked directly, attempting a double-leg takedown from a left stance. Novikov, however, avoided the leg, slipped underneath, and threw the massive opponent squarely onto his back. Moments later, the match was over. Sergey Novikov decided to retire in 1980 and shifted his focus to public service, closely tied to sports. After leaving professional competition, he made it his mission to promote healthy lifestyles and encourage youth participation in sports. On April 16, 2021, Sergey Novikov passed away. He was a man who left an indelible mark on the history of judo and sambo. Through his worldview and the qualities he embodied, discipline, resilience, integrity, he inspired others. His life proved that the impossible can indeed be possible. His victories significantly contributed to building a strong sports culture in the Soviet Union, encouraging countless young boys and girls to believe in themselves and aim for the highest achievements. In today's video, I want to tell you about an outstanding Soviet judoka representing the greatness of Soviet sport on the international arena, Shota Chochishvili. A multiple medalist of world and European championships, and the first Soviet athlete to become an Olympic champion in judo. Shota Chochishvili was born on July 10, 1950 in the city of Gori, Georgian Soviet Republic. Since childhood, the guy was interested in the Georgian national wrestling, Chidaoba. And as he himself said, "Who owns Chidaoba? He is 90% already a judoka." In the 7th grade, he switched his attention to sambo and judo as instructed by his coach. The athlete gave all of himself to his favorite occupation, giving his best in training, which, in the end, affected his athletic achievements and made Shota Chochishvili one of the most famous Soviet wrestlers in the world. But success caught up with Shota quite by accident. As there was no main leader in the weight of 93 kilograms for the 1972 Olympics, held in Munich, Shota Chochishvili was chosen on the recommendation of the head coach of the Soviet Union national sambo team, Stanislav Ionov. Despite the fact that at the Soviet Union Sambo Championship this year, Shota was only 5th. Competing at the Olympic Games, Chochishvili sensationally defeated the clear favorite, two-time world champion in 1969 and 1971, Japanese Fumio Sasahara, already at the beginning of the tournament grid. Many experts were sure that the gold medal of this Olympics in the weight category, up to 93 kilograms, would go to the Japanese. But Chochishvili first made a waza-ari throw, and a minute before the end of the bout, he put the Japanese down with a clean throw on ippon. Chochishvili's individual technique, the foundations of which he laid as a child, practicing national wrestling, Chidoba, allowed him to defeat his opponents at this tournament, who were not familiar with its specifics. So he defeated athletes from the Federal Republic of Germany, Italy, and the United States. And in the final bout, Shota met with judoka from Great Britain, David Starbrook, to whom he lost in the preliminary bouts, but according to the old rules, had the right to go to the final. After a hard fight in the final and extra time, the victory, according to the judges, was given to Chochishvili. So Shota sensationally wins the Olympic gold and inscribes his name in history, becoming the first Olympic judo champion of the Soviet Union. From 1973 to 1976, Shota Chochishvili won silver at the European Championships 4 times in a row, and also became a bronze medalist at the 1975 World Championships. At the 1976 Olympics, Shota competed in the Absolute Championship, where he won the bronze medal, winning the bout against French judoka Jean-Luc Rouge. After the Games, after wrestling for a couple more years and winning another bronze medal at the 1977 World Championships, Chochishvili decided to hang up his kimono and end his competitive career. And after his career ended, he switched to coaching, where he worked with the Soviet Union national team. It is also worth mentioning that in 1989, Chochishvili signed a contract with a Japanese pro wrestling company and performed at a show in Japan, where he defeated one of the legendary Japanese wrestlers, Antonio Inoki. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, Shota Chochishvili took the post of vice president of the Georgian Olympic Committee and the Judo Federation of Georgia, which allowed him to develop his favorite sport further, as well as to help young athletes to strive for the heights of judo. Unfortunately, Shota Chochishvili died on August 27, 2009, at the 59th year of his life. One of the most legendary Soviet judokas, honored Master of Sports of the USSR and silver medalist of the 1976 Montreal Olympic Games, Valery Dvoinikov left a deep mark in the history of world judo. His rare technique, outstanding physical qualities, and iron will turned him into a true legend. Recognized as one of the fastest judokas of his time, Dvoinikov's signature move, the mill, struck fear into the hearts of his opponents. Valery Dvoinikov grew up in the small town of Ozersk in the Chelyabinsk region in a large, hard-working, and close-knit family. From a young age, he learned the value of labor. By the age of 13, he skillfully handled an axe and a sledgehammer. His peers could not compare to him. His calloused hands, powerful physique, strong legs, and remarkable stamina set him apart. For 4 years, without missing a single session, Valery rigorously trained, absorbing the technical arsenal of the Leningrad Freestyle Wrestling School and the Moscow Sambo School. Using cutting-edge methods for elite athletes, he developed explosive speed and power in executing his signature moves at any stage of a match. His hard work soon brought its first serious rewards. In 1968, at the USSR Sambo Championship, he ended all his matches ahead of time. In the final, it took him just 17 seconds to lift his opponent from Armenia onto his shoulders and slam him onto the mat. At 17, he earned a title of Master of Sports of the USSR. This serious, focused, and incredibly driven young man kept training with even more intensity. Not even 20 years old, Dvoinikov broke into the elite ranks of the Soviet senior team. In 1971, he was entrusted with representing the USSR at the European Championship in Sweden, where he earned a bronze medal at his debut adult-level tournament. Valery delivered an outstanding performance in the pre-Olympic tournament cycle, winning gold in Poland, Hungary, and France. Yet fate dealt a blow. He did not make the Olympic team. His main competitor, Anatoly Novikov, earned the spot and eventually took bronze at those games. After enrolling at the Kyiv Institute of Physical Culture and Sports in 1973, Dvoinikov reached new heights. Training under legendary coaches Yaroslav Voloshyok and Roman Shkolnikov, he conquered the top international podiums. At the USSR Championship in December 1973, with little preparation, he took bronze. Then, in 1974, he won gold at the USSR Championship, the World University Games, and the Team European Championship, while earning silver in the individual European competition. At the Universiade, the iconic photo of the 71 kilograms final featured Valery in an upright attacking stance, facing a Japanese judoka crouched defensively. Despite his opponent's efforts to avoid defeat, Dvoinikov overpowered him. In 1975, the year before the Olympics, 2 judokas dominated the 71 kilograms category in the USSR, Europe, and the world: Vladimir Nevzorov and Valery Dvoinikov. Both stormed through their brackets at the World Championships, beating Japanese masters to meet in the final. It was a triumphant moment for Soviet judo that attracted global media attention. What many didn't know was that Dvoinikov fought through injuries that year. His left arm had undergone surgery, and despite the pain, he competed in 3 finals: the USSR Championship, the European Championship, and the World Championship. In the end, he lost to Nevzorov, his close friend and rival, taking silver. Still, Valery pushed forward, aiming for Olympic qualification. 2 months before the 1976 Games, he claimed 2 gold medals at the European Championship, both individual and team events, defeating the continent's best. This success earned him a spot on the Olympic team, though not in his usual 71 kilograms class, but in the heavier 80 kilograms category. At the Montreal Olympics, Dvoinikov performed a true athletic miracle. His opponents outweighed him by 7 to 10 kilograms, yet he advanced to the final. There, he faced Japan's Isamu Sonoda. Valery continuously pressed the attack, but the Japanese judoka successfully blocked every move. Despite Sonoda twice deserving official warnings for passivity, which could have led to disqualification, the judges remained silent. Eventually, Sonoda initiated a clinch, and during the counter-exchange, both athletes fell sideways. The referees credited Sonoda with a Yuko score, which ultimately decided the match. Even so, earning Olympic silver under such conditions was a rare and honorable feat, a true embodiment of judo's spirit: skill over brute strength. To this day, Valery Dvoinikov looks at that medal and sees a golden glow. He knows better than anyone. That medal should have been gold. After retiring from active competition, Valery Dvoinikov coached national teams in Ukraine, Algeria, Belgium, and Portugal. His students include national and continental champions, as well as medalists of European and World Championships. Since 1994, Dvoinikov has lived in Liège, Belgium. At one point, Belgian doctors forbade him from returning to the tatami due to a heart condition. A special device implanted in his chest helps regulate his heartbeat. Yet the legendary champion refused to step away from the sport. He continues coaching, passing down his knowledge to athletes of all ages and levels. Between October 1977 and his retirement from competition in April 1985 as a 6th-degree black belt, Japanese judoka, 4-time world champion and Olympic champion, Yasuhiro Yamashita won 203 consecutive bouts without losing a single one. He set a record that is unrivaled to this day, making him the greatest judoka of all time. One could even say that Yasuhiro Yamashita is judo in its purest form. One of Japan's most famous sports figures, Yamashita was born on June 1, 1957, in Kumamoto Prefecture on the island of Kyushu. He began practicing judo in elementary school after being inspired by its founder, Kano Jigoro. His first instructor recalled Yamashita's first session at the dojo in these words, "Yasuhiro was a smiling, chubby young man. It was obvious that he had not experienced any of life's difficulties. Therefore, I thought it was unlikely that he would continue practicing judo for a long time." But this first impression of the instructor turned out to be wrong. Yasuhiro, with the head and for a long time immersed in judo, died so that by the time he went to high school, already received a black belt, and soon earned himself a reputation as a talented judoka with a promising future. But still, few expected from him that hurricane, which is about to shake the world of judo. The judo world didn't have to wait long for proof. Yamashita won his first All-Japan title in 1977 at the age of 19, making him the youngest person ever to do so. After that, he became a dominant force on both the national and international stage, beginning his unprecedented streak of 203 fights without defeat, and which lasted until his retirement. During that time, the Japanese maestro won 8 more All-Japan Judo Championships, as well as 4 gold medals at the World Judo Championships. While at the peak of his powers, Yamashita was nevertheless forced to skip judo competition at the 1980 Olympic Games in Moscow. His country was one of 66 nations that decided to boycott the Games in protest of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. Yamashita's only chance to compete in the Olympics finally came in Los Angeles 4 years later. Such a long wait for this moment, however, nearly spelled disaster at the end when he tore a calf muscle in his right leg while winning a preliminary bout at the Games. As the favorite, Yasuhiro struggled throughout the tournament and still limped noticeably during his win over Frenchman Laurent Del Colombo in the semifinals. But ultimately, despite the injury, the Japanese judoka was destined to win the Olympic title his illustrious career deserved. His opponent in the final at the Eagle's Nest Arena was Egypt's Mohamed Ali Rashwan. The Egyptian judoka later admitted that he was aware of Yamashita's injury and avoided attacking his opponent's right side in the final, for which he later received an award from the International Fair Play Committee in recognition of his sportsmanship at such a critical moment. In 1993, Yasuhiro Yamashita described this, his 1984 Olympic victory, as the realization of his childhood dream. A year after his greatest victory, at just 28 years of age, having suffered numerous injuries throughout his career, Yamashita decided to retire from competitive judo. Yasuhiro Yamashita will forever be associated with greatness. He possessed a will to win and an unparalleled skill set on the tatami. And off the tatami, he was an unassuming, humble character who, while turning down lucrative offers outside of judo after his competitive career, retained his full commitment to excellence in judo, serving as a constant instructor and inspiration to the current generation of judoka around the world. Yamashita once said, "If they could see on my face what I feel in my heart, no one would ever fight me." For the majority of athletes, capturing Olympic gold stands as the highest point of their professional journey, a culmination of years, often decades of training, sacrifices, and relentless pursuit of excellence. In their most vivid dreams, many envision stepping onto the top platform of the podium, the roar of the crowd washing over them, while the iconic 5 Olympic rings shimmer against the fluttering flag. Yet there are moments when even this remarkable feat doesn't suffice to feel truly exceptional, to stand out not merely as one among champions, but as a singular figure who made a profound and lasting impact on their discipline. For these rare individuals, immortality lies in becoming the face of their sport, in having their name become synonymous with a technique, a style, or even an idea. Today's video is about one such legend, a man who etched his name into judo history not just through triumphs, but through a signature technique that would come to bear his name, Shota Chochishvili. Born on December 26, 1958, in Zlevizvari in the Kareli district of what was then the Georgian Soviet Socialist Republic, Shota Chochishvili began his journey in martial arts with many other Georgian children by training in Chidoaba, the traditional Georgian style of wrestling. This native combat form bears several similarities to judo, often serving as a stepping stone for those destined to rise through the ranks of international competition. It was watching his fellow countryman, Shota Chochishvili, secure Olympic gold at the 1972 Munich Games that first lit the Olympic fire in young Chochishvili. At the age of 19, Chochishvili took up judo seriously. Just 2 years into his new path, he achieved a significant milestone, a silver medal at the 1979 European Championships. But this early success wasn't a guarantee of Olympic participation. His style, heavily influenced by Chidoaba, was unorthodox and sometimes criticized as anti-judo. Moreover, he faced stiff competition for a spot on the Soviet team, particularly from the formidable Alexei Volosov. The matter could only be settled in direct combat, and it was Chochishvili's psychological fortitude, combined with his distinctive technique, that earned him the coveted place in the 1980 Olympic Games. The 1980 Olympics, held in Moscow, saw a diminished field due to the Japanese-led boycott. Nonetheless, the 78 kilograms weight class remained fiercely competitive, with elite judokas such as France's Bernard Chuluyan, Germany's Harald Heinke, and Bulgaria's Georgy Petrov, all vying for the top prize. While performing in front of a home crowd can be inspiring, it also brings tremendous pressure. With each Soviet teammate exiting the competition, expectations mounted. Yet Chochishvili remained steady, unaffected by the mounting psychological burden that would have unnerved a lesser athlete. Competing at home is a double-edged sword, Chochishvili later said. Kolya did well and won, and I managed to perform too. My opening match was against Heinke, the same competitor who had previously bested me at the European Championships due to questionable officiating. After that loss, we clashed 4 more times, and I emerged victorious each time. I defeated him again at the Olympics and cruised through my other matches. I expected to meet Bernard Chuluyan in the final, but he unexpectedly lost to Cuba's Ferreira while trying to qualify. In the final, it was Chochishvili's foundation in Chidoaba that gave him the edge. Ferreira, unfamiliar with the Georgian's unconventional moves, was caught off guard. Though the Cuban mounted a respectable resistance, he ultimately couldn't match Chochishvili's superior tactics and execution. With that performance, Shota Chochishvili became an Olympic champion, etching his name permanently into the annals of the sport. Each judoka has their own approach, said Chochishvili. Ours is the Georgian way, and perhaps that's what helped me stand out. Thanks to that style, I won Olympic gold. I am proud that the technique I used so effectively was eventually named after me. the Kabareli hold. It was a great moment when the International Judo Federation made it official. Kabareli didn't rest on his laurels. In 1981, he returned to the European stage and took bronze. A year later, he claimed silver at the continental level. By 1983, he had added 2 more bronze medals to his resume, one from the European Championships and another from the World Championships, continuing to demonstrate his resilience and world-class skill. However, the Soviet Union's decision to boycott the 1984 Olympics cast a long shadow. It deeply affected many elite athletes, disheartening those who had trained for years for a chance at Olympic glory. While it's difficult to say if this was the only reason, the disappointment certainly contributed to Kabareli's decision to retire from active competition and transition into coaching. Kabareli would go on to serve as the head coach of the Georgian national judo team for 19 years, a period that many consider to be one of the golden eras of Georgian judo. His contributions helped elevate the country's standing on the international stage. Eventually, Kabareli extended his influence beyond the dojo, becoming involved in politics and dedicating his efforts to the advancement of sports in his homeland. Earlier on the channel, I have already made many videos about legendary judokas who left a significant mark in history. Of course, most often they were judokas from Japan, because in the homeland of this wonderful sport, they are the best. But here about the legends of Soviet judo, I spoke much less, and there's also someone to tell about. For example, about the athlete who was recognized as one of the best judokas of the 20th century, the outstanding Soviet judoka Nikolay Solodukhin. 1980 Olympic champion in Moscow, 2-time world champion 1979 and 1983, European champion 1979, 5-time champion of the Soviet Union, and honored master of sports of the Soviet Union. Nikolay Solodukhin was born on January 3, 1955 in the small village of Posirkovo near Zheleznogorsk, Kursk region into a family of collective farmers. From a young age, the future champion was a very hard-working child and never shirked from work. And to work in the village, of course, had to work a lot. And Nikolay, along with his brothers and sisters, naturally every day helped their parents in the household. But despite the strong fatigue, in his free time, he never refused to chase a ball with the village boys or wrestle with them. As his older brother Vladimir recalled that Nikolay often returned home late at night, all in abrasions and bruises, but very happy, and told the following: "Defeated today Petya and Mishka, although they are training in the section in Zheleznogorsk. I will go to the city as soon as I finish the 8th grade of school." Having finished the 8th grade, Nikolay entered a technical school. He was patient and diligent, and devoted all his free time to sports, namely Sambo. That very soon gave its positive results, and after only a year of regular training, Nikolay won the Zheleznogorsk Sambo Championship among juniors. Then it became clear that the young wrestler has excellent talents and they need to be developed. Later, the judoist recalled that training was always a pleasure for him, and he did his best to improve his skills every day. After leaving the school, Solodukhin went to Kursk, where he joined the police force and became interested in judo wrestling, a martial art in which he would achieve the highest results and write his name in the history of domestic and world sports. After 4 years of training, in 1975, unknown at that time in the sports world, Nikolay Solodukhin went to the Spartakiad of the Peoples of the Soviet Union. Solodukhin's performance at this tournament was amazing. Almost all his fights, he finished early and as a result became the champion of the Spartakiad. It was very unexpected because shortly before the Spartakiad, he lost the Youth World Championship held in Brazil. But it was this upsetting loss that made Nikolay work even harder in training. Hard-working and self-loving Nikolay, who was not used to sparring himself, began to persistently hone his technique, and as a result, He was no equal in the parterre, and later he was even nicknamed King of Parterre. The transition to the next, namely to the international level, took Nikolay 4 years, so that once again Solodukhin was talked about in 1979, when he won first at the European Championships and then at the World Championships. By the way, a year before these victories, Nikolay Solodukhin became a silver medalist at the European Championship, thus once again declaring his potential. In 1980, the Summer Olympic Games in Moscow were held, which were important for the then leadership of the Soviet Union. The Soviet athletes were tasked with winning the maximum number of medals in all disciplines in order to show the West how strong the Soviet Union was in sports. As for judo, one of the main contenders for gold in judo competitions was Solodukhin, who later lived up to the expectations placed on him and coped with the task. Solodukhin left no chance for victory to the strongest judokas of the world, becoming the Olympic champion in judo in the weight category up to 65 kilograms. After these Olympic Games, in the following years, Nikolay Solodukhin repeatedly became a prize winner and winner of major international competitions, as well as championships of the Soviet Union. In particular, in 1983, Solodukhin became world champion for the second time. At the end of his sports career, Nikolay Solodukhin returned to his native Kursk, where he lives now. He runs a judo school, bringing up a new generation of judokas who now compete in various competitions in Russia and the world. Grigory Verichev is a legend of Soviet judo. An incredibly successful judoka, he amassed a title haul unmatched by any other Soviet athlete in the sport. For 17 years, Verichev served on the USSR's youth, junior, and senior national teams. His unique achievement, he never returned from a tournament without a medal. His collection exceeds 100 international medals, 14 of them from World Championships, European Championships, and the Olympic Games. He is a world champion, 4-time European champion, 9-time USSR champion, and the 1988 Olympic bronze medalist, all in the premier super heavyweight division. Over the course of 887 tournaments, he fought more than 800 bouts and claimed 161 medals of every color. Verichev himself singles out the victory at the 1985 European Team Championships in Brussels. In the final against France, the score stood at 2-2, and the fate of the Soviet squad hinged on Verichev's bout. Trailing early, he launched an ippon scoring throw just seconds before time expired, securing team gold. Yet one prize is missing from Verichev's vast collection: Olympic gold. Because of the Soviet boycott of the 1984 Los Angeles Games, he had to settle for winning the Friendship Games, which Soviet media portrayed as an Olympic equivalent, though in reality, the two were worlds apart. Unfortunately, gold also eluded him at the 1988 Seoul Olympics, where he earned bronze. As Verichev recalled, "Our coaches were so afraid of responsibility that they overdid the workloads. We finished with 1 silver and 4 bronzes, decent, but no gold." Frank and forthright, Verichev spoke his mind openly, which often brought trouble. A vivid example was his clash with the national coaching staff. He bluntly pointed out their mistakes and insisted on doing things his own way. As a result, he was dropped from the squad on the eve of the 1983 World Championships in Moscow, where he was a genuine medal contender. Verichev's deepest disappointment remains the Olympic Games. In principle, he could have competed at 4: Moscow 1980, Los Angeles 1984, Seoul 1988, and Barcelona 1992, but appeared in only one. He was left off the Moscow and Barcelona rosters despite being the likeliest gold prospect, and the USSR skipped Los Angeles for political reasons. The Seoul bronze scarcely reflects his true potential. After leaving elite judo in 1989, Verichev spent 3 years in Japan competing in catch wrestling. He frequently joined national team training camps as a consultant for half-heavyweight and heavyweight judoka. He later headed a club that was eventually named in his honor. One of the most famous, inimitable, and accomplished judoka in history is the Japanese Toshihiko Koga. His judo skills are a unique combination of explosive power and technique, so rare in this martial art. Toshihiko Koga was born in Saga Prefecture, Japan on November 21, 1967. From an early age, he was interested in martial arts, particularly judo, which he began practicing in elementary school at the age of 6, training with his older brother Motohiro and his father Toshiro. Subsequently, the two Koga brothers became famous wrestlers. But Toshihiko succeeded more. He once even defeated Motohiro at one of Japan's tournaments. Toshihiko Koga began his international career in 1985 and a year later won the World Junior Championship. In 1987, for the first time, he became champion of Japan and was selected to participate in the World Senior Championships, where he won a bronze medal. 2 years later, at his second adult championship in 1989, he won gold. In 1991, Toshihiko won the World Championship again and was selected to participate in the 1992 Olympic Games in Barcelona, where he was the clear favorite. 44 judokas fought in his category. Right before the competition, in a training bout with Hidehiko Yoshida, he suffered a setback when he severely injured his left knee. This injury prevented Toshihiko Koga from doing his favorite ippon seoi nage, throw over the back with a hand on the shoulder. The Japanese judoka fought through the pain and therefore did not show the undeniable superiority over his opponents. In the first bout, Koga held a clean throw with a leg rest in the stomach. In the second, he managed to hold a snatch for both legs. In the third, he won only by the judges' preference. In the semi-final, he held a clean throw with a hand under the shoulder. In the final bout, no one was able to hold a hold. The judges gave the victory to the Japanese, which surprised many fans and experts. After the Olympic Games, stopped performing at the competitions for several years, but came back in 1994 in heavier weight, up to 78 kilograms. In which a year later became a 3-time world champion. At the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta, Koga again competed as the favorite and advanced to the finals quite confidently, showing a variety of techniques. He won the first match by throwing over the chest, the second by pinning, the third by throwing over the hip with a lapel grab, and in the semifinals, he won due to the caution of his opponent. In the finals, he was in the lead all the way, but with 16 seconds to go, he was cautioned for passivity, resulting in a draw, and the judges gave the victory to his opponent. Throughout his career, Toshihiko Koga has been very adept at using his trademark ippon seoi nage. Toshihiko's mastery of this particular judo throw is legendary in the judo community, and is considered perhaps the greatest in history. Nevertheless, on some occasions, when Toshihiko faced injuries, such as injuries to his elbow in 1986 and to his knee in 1992, that prevented him from using this technique. He overcame the pain each time to find a way out of these critical situations and won competitions, which was a testament not only to his skills and dedication to judo, but also to his ability to adapt and use techniques that could compensate for his injuries. Toshihiko also defeated opponents even when the odds were against him. He made it to the finals of the 1990 Japan Judo Open Weight Championship, fighting much heavier and taller opponents, and won silver, losing only in the finals to world champion Naoya Ogawa, who was 193 centimeters tall and 115 kilograms. Toshihiko retired from competition in 2000 after winning every possible judo title, becoming a 3-time world champion and a 7-time Japanese champion. And these days, Toshihiko Koga's legacy is continued by his sons Hayato and Genki, trying to replicate their father's success and become just as impressive judo practitioners. The imposing Frenchman David Douillet, a legendary heavyweight judoka who dominated judo for nearly a decade, winning honors at every stage. He is a paragon of physicality, finesse, and strength, winning 2 Olympic golds in Atlanta in 1996 and Sydney in 2000, as well as 4 world titles, along with 2 European titles. He conquered the world and left a legacy that many will emulate, but only a few will be able to match. David Douillet showed great promise from an early age. Starting judo at the age of 11, he immediately showed his talent. And given that at that age, Douillet had exceptional physical size, was 180 centimeters tall with a weight of 80 kilograms, it was clear that he was developing into a formidable natural athlete. David Douillet achieved his first significant success in judo in 1988, becoming French junior champion, a title he won the following year, along with a bronze medal at the European Championships, again as a junior. After that, David Douillet moves to the adult level, adapts to stronger opponents for some time, and in 1991, he wins his first French senior championship, defeating in the final another French judo hope, Georges Mifune. Thanks to this first national title, David qualified for his first adult European Championships in Prague, where he placed 3rd, a real achievement for the 22-year-old. At the beginning of 1992, he successfully defended his national title in the heavyweight category and qualified for the Barcelona Olympics, which took place in July of the same year. At the Olympic Games, David Douillet faced stiff competition, losing to 4-time world champion Naoya Ogawa of Japan. However, he could still hope for bronze. Thus, in the fight for 3rd place, the Frenchman defeated Cuban Frank Moreno Garcia and won the bronze medal. The next significant event in David Douillet's competitive career was his participation in his 2nd World Championship, which he approached very ambitiously. Having defeated several experienced judokas, Douillet reached the final, where he defeated the favorite of this tournament, Olympic and European champion David Chochishvili, who had defeated him at the European Championships a few months earlier. With this title, won at the age of 24, he became the first French world champion in this weight class, considered by some to be the highest category of judo. Due to the Olympic Games in Atlanta, the 1995 World Judo Championships in Chiba, Japan, was a mandatory preparatory stage for the American Olympic Games. David Douillet planned to defend his world title won 2 years earlier in Canada, but this time he competed in both his weight class and the absolute category. In the former, the Frenchman showed his top class by winning each of his bouts by ippon. He defeated 4-time world champion Naoya Ogawa of Japan in the semifinals, then Spain's Ernesto Perez in the semifinals, before defeating Germany's Frank Moeller in the finals in less than 2 minutes. 3 days later, Douillet repeated his success in the absolute category, defeating Russian Sergey Kosaratov in the final, which made him the main favorite for the next Olympic Games. Moreover, thanks to his double victory, David Douillet made judo history, becoming the 3rd judoka to accomplish this feat after Yasuhiro Yamashita in 1981 and Naoya Ogawa in 1989. At his first bouts, knocking out Belgium's Van Barneveld, Luxembourg's Moeller, and Austria's Krieger. The Frenchman then fought in the semifinals against Japan's Naoya Ogawa, the same judoka he had lost to, at the same stage of the Olympic tournament in Barcelona 4 years earlier. In this tense bout, which the French called the final before the final, Douillet had already won. On September 30, 1996, 2 months after winning the Olympic title in Atlanta, Douillet suffered serious injuries to his shin and right shoulder in a motorcycle accident. A long recovery and 8 months of rehabilitation gave him renewed motivation after his gold medal. This accident renewed my desire. After Atlanta, I had the impression that I had done it. I have accomplished a lot. Then, after the accident, I had a new challenge in front of me, to become first an athlete again, and then a winning athlete. Thus, he gradually returned to his ideal form and started competing again, leading high hopes for the 1997 World Championships held in Paris. In the competition, Douillet reached the final, once again defeating Turkey's Salim Tataroglu in the semifinals. And in the final, he disqualified Japanese Shinichi Shinohara. This victory brought him his third world crown. On September 22, 2000, the Olympic judo tournament started, and David Douillet was determined to try to become the most titled judoka in history. At the Olympic tournament, Douillet performed well, defeated all of his opponents, and successfully reached the finals. In the gold medal bout, he faced reigning world champion Shinichi Shinohara, a judoka who had gained dominance in Douillet's absence and was determined to maintain that position. Both men began the bout in a state of heightened tension. After a minute, Douillet launched an attack, attempting a Uchimata throw through the inner thigh, but Shinohara parried this by sending his opponents through himself. Both judoka fell to the ground and Shinohara got up with his hands in the air, convinced he had won by ippon. But the judges disagreed and awarded Douillet a yuko for his Uchimata. This decision caused much controversy, especially in Japan, but was later deemed not to have been a mistake by the referee. So the final went on, and despite 2 misses, Douillet earned a second yuko, which was enough of an advantage to give him the win and become already a 2-time Olympic champion and one of the greatest judoka in history. However, the Olympic tournament in Sydney was the end of the road for the French judoka, because immediately after the competition, at the age of 31, being at the peak of his career, he announced his retirement. Japanese judoka Tadahiro Nomura, the only 3-time Olympic champion in judo history for both men and women, an absolute terror on the tatami in the under 60 kilograms category, and a judo legend in his own lifetime. Nomura was born in 1974 in Koryo, Japan, surrounded by judo, to a family with a rich sporting heritage. His grandfather ran the local judo school, and his father coached 1984 Olympic gold medalist Shinji Hosokawa. Even his uncle took home gold at the 1972 Olympics, 2 years before he was born. Born into an elite family of judo masters, Nomura undoubtedly followed the same path. When he first started walking and controlling his movements, he was already playing with friends on the tatami at his grandfather's school, and soon began learning his first judo techniques. As a teenager, Nomura grew in skill and competed both nationally and internationally before he joined his father's judo team at Tenri University. In 1996, at the age of just 21, Nomura competed in the All Japan Judo Championships, where he defeated the 1993 world champion in the 60 kilograms weight class and won the division, which earned him a spot on the Japanese Olympic team. At the 1996 Olympics, few expected a high performance from Nomura, as the Atlanta Games were his first real test against the world's top players. But Nomura made an outstanding outing on the world stage, showed great class, and won his first gold medal at the age of 21, defeating Italy's Girolamo Giovinazzo in the final. After winning the Olympics, Nomura did not relax. In 1997, he won the World Judo Championships, defeating Georgian judoka Grigory Verichev in the final. And he won the All Japan Judo Championships again. Adding these victories at major competitions to his list of accomplishments, Tadahiro became a favorite for the Sydney Olympics. Bouts up to 60 kilograms were held on the first day of judo competition. After winning 4 bouts, he faced Asian champion Bu Kyeong-jung of South Korea in the final. 14 seconds of the fight was enough for Tadahiro Nomura to make an ippon and win his second Olympic title in a row. After this gold medal, Tadahiro suspended his athletic career for 2 years, but his passion for judo took over. His return to top-level competition in 2003 was marked by an unexpected bronze medal at the Osaka World Championships, at which point judo fans began to wonder if age and the long hiatus had undermined Nomura's status as the best judoka at 60 kilograms. But Tadahiro was not about to give up his crown, and qualified for his third Olympics the following year. In the final of the 2004 Athens Olympics, the Japanese judoka faced Georgian judoka Nestor Kirgiani. Tadahiro earned a Yuko score very quickly. Then he maintained his advantage on the scoreboard, and as a result celebrated his victory for the third time, becoming the only judoka to win 3 Olympic gold medals, a feat that remains unrivaled in judo to this day. After the Games, Nomura, without making any official announcement, stopped competing. Only in the next Olympic cycle did he return. But by 2007, age and repeated breaks in training had already taken a toll on Nomura, even despite his immense talent. After crashing out of the 2008 cycle, Nomura officially retired from competitive judo. A failed comeback in 2012 also went nowhere, and after a few more setbacks, Nomura finally retired. But despite this, thanks to his 3 Olympic titles and other gold and silver medals collected along the way, Tadahiro Nomura can without exaggeration be called the greatest judoka in the world. Japanese judoka Ryoko Tani is only 146 centimeters tall, but that didn't stop her from becoming the best female judoka of all time. Bursting onto the international scene at the age of 15 after winning the Fukuoka Cup over 4-time world champion Karen Briggs, the Japanese star went on to dominate her weight class for 2 decades. Tani is the first woman judoka in history to compete in 5 Olympic Games and the only one to medal each time. She went a remarkable 12 years without defeat at the international level, winning every major competition she competed in, from late 1996 to 2008. First stepping onto the tatami at the age of 7, Tani won her first judo title just 1 year later. In her early years, she was inspired by 4-time world champion Karen Briggs of Great Britain. At the age of 15, Tani competed against her role model for the first time at the 1990 Fukuoka Cup, the first international women's judo competition held in Japan. Tani beat her idol in what was her first major victory, although a year later, Briggs got her revenge in the World Championship semifinals, and Ryoko had to settle for bronze. When women's judo made its first appearance at the Barcelona Olympics in 1992, 28 years after the men's competition, Tani thrilled the crowd on her way to reaching the final at the age of just 16, losing only to French world champion Cécile Novak. She continued her climb to the top, winning 2 world championships in 1993 and 1995. And by the 1996 Olympic Games in Atlanta, she was a major favorite. Tani went to Atlanta as the top favorite, winning 84 consecutive events. But as a result, she failed to live up to expectations at the Olympics and had to settle for silver once again, this time losing in the final to a young North Korean judoka, Tae Sun-hui, who was competing in her first international tournament. But for the 3rd time, in the final of the 2000 Sydney Olympics, she was already lucky. She defeated Lyubov Brulatova of Russia in the hippo in just 36 seconds and finally won her first Olympic gold medal. Now that she had reached great heights, in the following years, Tani beat all her competitors at all the major biennial championships for over a decade. Competing in Athens in 2004, she reached her 4th consecutive Olympic final when she defeated French judoka Frédéric Jassanet by waza ari, becoming the first female judoka to retain an Olympic title. Tana's steady success earned her many loyal fans in Japan and allowed her to become the main character in a popular Japanese comic book, and her performances in major competitions generated enormous media interest. In 2005, she gave birth to her firstborn child, and 3 years later returned to the 2008 Olympic stage in Beijing, where she won bronze after losing to Romanian Alina Dumitriu in the semifinals. Not content with winning 5 Olympic medals, Ryoko Tani said she would return in 2012 for the London Olympics. However, in 2010, after the birth of her second child, she announced the end of her career and went into politics, winning a seat in Japan's parliament. Tiny Japanese Ryoko Tani is a shining example that you don't have to be tall, strong, or have imposing looks to become a champion, but all it takes is determination. In Japan, where judo is more than just a sport, Kosei Inoue is an extraordinary athlete. Unbeatable between 1999 and 2003, this judo flyweight won 3 world titles and an Olympic gold medal, making him one of the greatest judokas of all time. Here's what Kosei Inoue says about judo. By practicing judo every day, it helps you win in life in general as well. After all, in judo, you're always getting thrown and you always have to get up, which is a lot like life itself. Inoue, like many others in Japan, began playing the sport at a young age, training hard every day under the guidance of his father. Kosei achieved his first significant success in international competition in 1998 when he was named to the Japanese national team and competed at the Asian Games in Bangkok, where he won a gold medal. A year later, he competed at the World Championships in Birmingham, where he also defeated all his rivals and took the gold medal. Thanks to this series of successful performances, Kosei Inoue was awarded the right to defend the honor of the country at the 2000 Summer Olympics in Sydney, and to carry the flag of Japan at the opening ceremony. At these Olympic Games, Kosei made a very impressive statement to the world by winning all of his bouts by ippon, including defeat in the quarterfinals of very strong judoka from Israel, Ariel Zevi, and in the final realized his famous victory over Nicholas Gill from Canada. When I won gold in Sydney in 2000, I was only 22 years old and still in university. My life had changed forever, but I was young and I felt like my career was just beginning, recalled Kosei. In the following years, the Japanese judoka did not give up and won more gold medals at the next 2 World Championships, which were held in Munich and Osaka. As well as 3 consecutive titles in the open weight class at the All Japan Championships, defeating much larger opponents. But at the next Olympic Games in Athens in 2004, he was unable to maintain his dominance and crashed out in the quarterfinals, losing to Dutchman Elko van der Geest. So many people were focused on me and I disappointed them, Inoue later reflected, unable to come to terms with the defeat. I've never experienced anything more humiliating and devastating in my life. After failing at these Olympics, Kosei Inoue remained on the main roster of Japan's national team and continued to compete in major international tournaments. However, with no significant accomplishments other than winning the 2005 Kano Cup and the 2007 World Super Cup. In 2005, he suffered a serious shoulder injury and had to miss several seasons, returning to competition only in 2007 in the heavyweight category. He tried to qualify for the Olympic Games in Beijing, but at the qualifying competition he suffered a defeat by ippon from his teammate Yohei Takai, and because of this defeat, he was forced to refuse to go to the Games. In 2008, he officially retired from judo. After the termination of his competitive career, Kosei Inoue devoted himself to coaching. He is currently the head coach of the Japanese judo team and is passing on his secrets to the next generation, proving that he is just as successful as he was during his stellar 10-year competitive career. The hero of today's video is one of the strongest judokas on the planet, and without exaggeration, the best athlete in Mongolia. After all, this athlete was the first Olympic champion in the history of his country, and 4 years later, in an attempt to defend his title of Olympic champion, he has shown incredible courage and bravery, showing that no matter how hard and hurt you are, you should still continue to fight to the end. The Mongolian judoka Naidan Tuvshinbayar was born on June 1, 1984, in a family of cattlemen. Since childhood, he was fond of national wrestling, was the champion of his AMEG, 4 times participated in all Mongolian Naidan tournaments. He took up judo at a rather late age, when he was 18. But as you can see, it didn't prevent Tuvshinbayar from excelling in this sport and becoming a member of the Mongolian national team and an international class athlete, particularly because of the wrestling background he has built up since childhood. As a member of the national team of Mongolia, Naidan Tuvshinbayar successfully participated in a number of prestigious international tournaments. He became silver and bronze medalist of the Asian Championships in 2007 and 2008. But his greatest achievement is undoubtedly his gold medal at the 2008 Beijing Olympics. On August 14, 2008, the Mongolian judoka made a very bold statement at the Beijing Olympics. It was his Olympic debut, but in his very first fight in the 100 kilograms category. He unexpectedly defeated the reigning Olympic champion and favorite of the games, Japanese Keiji Suzuki, with an assault in 1 minute and 26 seconds. Tuvshinbayar confidently defeated his next opponents and got to the final Olympic debut in 1964. Finally won an Olympic gold medal. Returning home from the Chinese capital after the Olympics, Tuvshinbayar, who is only 24 years old, became a national hero, and his victory was celebrated by all of Mongolia. 4 years later, on August 2, 2012, at the next Olympic Games in London, the Mongolian judoka showed incredible courage as he tried to defend his Olympic heavyweight title. In the semi-finals against Korean judoka Hwang Hee-tae, Tuvshinbayar suffered a serious injury to his left knee, tearing his anterior cruciate ligaments. The pain was excruciating, and his chances of reaching the finals seemed slim. But somehow he managed to get on the mat to fight with Tagir Kaibulev of Russia for the gold medal. Alas, the miracle did not happen. The clearly weakened Tuvshinbayar fell to the ippon after only 2 minutes, becoming the Olympic silver medalist, and then was taken back to Mongolia in a wheelchair. But with that silver medal, he also became the only Mongolian to win 2 Olympic medals. Everyone in judo surely knows who Ilias Iliadis is. He is a true legend of the sport. His achievements are remarkable. Olympic champion in Athens 2004, multiple-time European and world champion. He won his Olympic gold medal in Athens in 2004 when he was only 17 years old, making him the youngest Olympic champion in judo history. He is a great pride of Greece, though he was born and raised in Georgia. He is one of those champions no one will ever forget. Ilias Iliadis was born in Georgia in 1986. His childhood was spent on the outskirts of Tbilisi during hard times for the country. The economic situation was dire, and athletes also suffered. They trained in poor, unsuitable conditions, cold, unheated facilities with nothing but cold water. Ilias, who at the time was known as Jargis Viadari, described himself as a bad boy in his youth. His parents decided he needed to do sports, and his father suggested boxing. But boxing did not impress Ilias. When he tried judo, however, he was fascinated. At the age of 15, Ilias began to perform successfully at international youth tournaments, where he met his future coach and adoptive father, Nikos Iliadis, who took him into his family and gave him his surname. In 2002, the Georgian boy Jargi received a new name and a new passport. He became Ilias Iliadis. When asked whether he feels more Georgian or Greek, he answers, "My blood is Georgian, but my mind is Greek." Just 2 years later, Ilias made his mark as one of the strongest judokas in the world. The year 2004 was a turning point. His life changed completely, and everyone came to know him. Competing for Greece, he won the European Championship, and just months later, he captured Olympic gold, becoming the youngest Olympic judo champion in history at only 17. In the following years, as he grew stronger, Ilias moved from the 81 kilograms category to -90 kilograms. In 2005, he won silver at the World Championships in Cairo and captured gold at the Mediterranean Games. In 2007, he reached the final of the World Championships in Rio de Janeiro, once again becoming one of the favorites for the Olympic title in Beijing 2008. However, the Beijing Games themselves did not go well for Ilias. He was eliminated in the very first round. Circumstances worked against him, as he had been forced to compete while carrying an injury. In the years that followed, he faced more and more setbacks. "I got injured many times and started losing again and again," Ilias recalled. "I couldn't stop it. In 2010, before the European Championships in Vienna, I told my coach that if I didn't win a medal, I would end my career. But I won a bronze medal, and I thought maybe it was a sign to wake up. A few months later came the World Championships in Tokyo, and I was ready again, ready to win, and nobody could stop me. In Tokyo, I motivated myself by saying that if I won gold, I would go to London. I wanted the gold medal, and I got it." Motivated again, Ilias Iliadis will again win the World Championship in Paris in 2011 and arrives in London as one of the favorites for the title, where he wins bronze, which he was glad of, just as if it were gold. After all, his country won only 2 medals. Without getting tired, in 2014, Iliadis again won the world title in Chelyabinsk. Then, he was at a turning point in his life, thinking that maybe it was time to stop, but still wanted more. The 2016 Olympics in Rio de Janeiro was his 4th, and by that time, he was tired of competing. After losing to Chinese judoka Cheng Shunjiao in the first round, he announced in an interview that this was his last tournament. But, despite the fact that Ilias stopped competing, he still continues to train hard. And as you can see in the video, he is in great shape and has an incredible physique. To the question, what is the secret physique? Answers: there are no secrets, only hard training. When I competed the most, I trained 3 times a day. I currently do strength training every morning and do judo 3 times a week. It's all about hard training, without limits and mercy. It will never be too much training for me. Shohei Ono is one of the best and perhaps the most dominant judoka both in Japan and in the world. He is the first judoka to win multiple Olympic gold medals in the 73 kilograms weight category, and the 4th judoka from Japan to defend an Olympic title. And his combination of brute ferocity and tactical invention has allowed Ono to be undefeated in this incredibly competitive weight class since 2015. It was only recently that he suffered an embarrassing setback at the last Olympic Games. Although a few days before that, at the same Olympics, Shohei Ono had also suffered a tremendous success. I'll talk about those events at the end of the video. But first, I'd like to take a look at his judo career and achievements before those events. Shohei Ono started judo at the age of 7 when he was in elementary school at the Yamaguchi Children's and Youth Sports Club. Here's what he says about it. "I don't remember the exact age when I got interested in judo, but I started practicing when I was probably 7 years old. And when I was 12, I left my family, and all my subsequent life I lived only for judo. It made me strong." Shohei achieved his first major success in 2010 when he won an international tournament in Lyon for the under 20 years. And in 2011, he won the world champion title in the same age category. His first victory at the adult level was the 2011 World Cup, when he was 19 years old. In 2012, Shohei won silver medals at the Asian and Japanese championships, won the Grand Slam tournament in Tokyo, and won the Kodokan Cup. After winning the prestigious Grand Slam tournament in Tokyo, Ono made a powerful statement to the world with his Ippon victories. Especially when he faced reigning world champion and Olympic silver medalist Riki Nakaya in the finals and defeated him with a stunning Osotogari Ippon. With this victory, Ono broke Nakaya's dominance in the lightweight division and started a rivalry between the two for the next 6 years. In 2013, Shohei Ono took third places at the Grand Slam tournament in Paris and at the Japanese Championship, and then won the world individual title and a bronze for the team. In 2014, he won the Japanese Championship and became the world team champion in Chelyabinsk, but remained below the medal line in the individual competition and also finished second at the Grand Slam tournament in Tokyo. In 2015, he was third at the National Championship, won the Dusseldorf Grand Prix, and became world champion for the second time in the individual competition, as well as for the second time in the team competition. In 2016, he was already the double champion of Japan, and again won the Dusseldorf Grand Prix. Thanks to all these achievements, Shohei Ono rode to the subsequent 2016 Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro as an absolute favorite, and as a result, he confirmed his status by defeating Azerbaijani judoka Rustam Orujev in the final and became the Olympic champion. After winning the Olympics, Shohei Ono stopped competing for a while and returned only in 2018. He continues his winning streak, winning the Grand Slam tournament in Dusseldorf and the Asian Games in Jakarta. At the 2019 Pre-Olympic World Championships held in Tokyo, Shohei Ono again won a gold medal. The final bout of this championship repeated the bout for the gold of the Olympic Games 2016 in Rio. On the tatami against Shohei came Azerbaijani Rustam Orujev. Miracle did not happen, and this match ended, just as in 2016, with the victory of the Japanese judoka and winning his third gold of the World Championships. The Japanese left no chance for his opponents to win, once again proving that in the lightweight category, he still has no equal. In February 2020, for the 5th time, Shohei Ono won the Grand Slam tournament. He was unmatched in the under 73 kilograms category. He was in perfect shape, and on his way to the finals, he defeated another Olympic champion Italian judoka Fabio Basile. And in the decisive bout, the 3-time world champion stepped on the tatami against An Chang-Grim of Korea, and as a result, he again celebrated victory. After that victory, Shohei Ono became the main contender for gold at the next Tokyo Olympics, which were held at his own house, which was a great responsibility for him because the whole of Japan was waiting for him to win Olympic gold. Before the last Olympic Games in Tokyo, Shohei Ono, the #1 judoka in his weight class, had a lot at stake, and I will say beforehand, he lived up to his hopes. In the quarterfinals, Ono faced another main contender for gold, Rustam Orujev of Azerbaijan. It was undoubtedly a tough duel, but Ono managed to hold 2 waza-ari and win a place in the semifinals. There he met Sogbatar Tsengocher from Mongolia and defeated him by taking waza-ari and reached the final. The final fight in weight under 73 kilograms took place between Shohei Ono and Lasha Shavdatuashvili from Georgia. The fight lasted exhausting 9 minutes and 25 seconds and went up to the gold score. But Ono managed to make waza-ari and for the second time became the Olympic champion, securing his status as one of the best judoka ever to walk this planet. But that wasn't the end of judo competition at the Tokyo Olympics for Shohei Ono. He was to compete in his first Olympic mixed team tournament, joining the best Japanese judokas. "I'm already thinking about team competition," Ono said. "I can't relax. I just want to earn points for Japan." But alas, unexpectedly for many, a setback befell him in this team tournament. Japanese judo gold medalist Shohei Ono lost his first bout since 2015 in the quarterfinals of his debut Olympic mixed team tournament. Shohei Ono was defeated by Germany's Igor Wandke in the second bout of the six-match quarterfinal. Wandke fought very defensively and earned 2 penalties, but then, with 16 seconds left in the bout, dropped Ono and earned a waza-ari. Shohei Ono's defeat, which broke his 6-year winning streak, was a sensation in the judo world. Still, this one unfortunate setback does not devalue all the victories he has achieved over the years of competition. Shohei Ono continues to be one of the best and most dominant judoka in the world.